When truth is hidden from the chosen one, begins with the realization that many chosen ones experience, only after years of quiet observation and reflection. There are moments in life when something feels slightly out of place, when conversations pause at the exact moment you enter the room, when certain questions seem to make people uncomfortable, even though you are simply searching for understanding. At first, these moments may feel insignificant, almost easy to dismiss. People change subjects all the time, and silence can sometimes be explained by coincidence. Yet over time, the pattern becomes harder to ignore. You begin noticing that certain topics are consistently avoided around you, that some individuals seem to know more about situations connected to your life than they are willing to share openly. The chosen one slowly realizes that there were pieces of information moving through the environment that never fully reached them.
Not because they were incapable of understanding it, but because someone, somewhere, decided that it was better if they did not know. This realization can be unsettling at first. It raises questions about why anyone would feel the need to hide truth from another person, especially when that truth may shape how they understand their own journey. But as awareness deepens, the chosen one begins recognizing that this pattern appears more often in the lives of individuals who carry unusual potential. When someone possesses a presence that disrupts ordinary expectations, it can create discomfort for those who are invested in keeping certain dynamics unchanged. Knowledge has power, and sometimes people fear what might happen when someone becomes aware of the full picture surrounding them. Silence then becomes a strategy. Information is redirected, conversations become vague, and answers are softened or delayed in ways that prevent the chosen one from connecting all the pieces at once.
Yet there is something important about the nature of truth that people often underestimate. Truth has a way of moving through the world, even when others try to contain it. It appears in small clues, unexpected conversations, sudden realizations, and moments of clarity that seem to arrive exactly when the mind is ready to receive them. The chosen one begins sensing that the information once hidden from them is gradually finding its way back into their awareness. What once felt like confusion starts forming into a pattern that reveals deeper meaning. The introduction, therefore, establishes an essential message for the journey ahead. Even if people once tried to keep certain truths out of your reach, awareness has its own timing. And when the chosen one becomes ready to see clearly, the information that was hidden does not remain hidden forever.
The subtle signs information was withheld begins not with a dramatic revelation, but with a quiet feeling that something in your environment never fully added up. Long before the chosen one consciously understands what was happening, there are small moments scattered across memory that carry a strange weight. At the time, they may appear insignificant. A conversation stops abruptly when you enter the room. Someone answers a question with unusual vagueness. A topic that seemed important suddenly disappears from discussion, as if it was never meant to be spoken about in the first place. When these moments occur individually, they are easy to dismiss. Human conversations are imperfect, and misunderstandings happen naturally in everyday life. But over time, the chosen one begins noticing that these moments are not isolated accidents. They form a pattern, subtle but persistent, like faint footprints leading towards something just beyond immediate awareness. This is often how the first signs appear. The chosen one senses that information is circulating within their environment, yet somehow it does not reach them directly. Others may talk freely among themselves, sharing details and perspectives that feel strangely incomplete when those same conversations include you. Answers become shorter, explanations become simpler, and certain subjects are treated as though they are too complicated to explore further. At first, the chosen one may assume that this difference is simply coincidence or a matter of timing.
Perhaps they joined the conversation too late, or perhaps the others simply did not feel the topic was important enough to explain again. But as the pattern continues repeating itself, the feeling grows stronger that something deeper may be happening. The mind begins remembering earlier experiences that suddenly take on new meaning.
You recall moments from childhood or early adulthood, when adults exchanged glances before responding to your questions. You remember occasions when people seemed nervous about revealing too much information in your presence. In some situations, the chosen one may have even heard fragments of conversation that stopped the moment they were noticed listening. None of these events provided clear proof of hidden information, yet together, they created an atmosphere of quiet uncertainty. The chosen one sensed that certain doors of understanding existed within their environment, yet those doors were rarely opened fully in front of them. Over time, this awareness begins sharpening your perception. Instead of ignoring these subtle signals, you start paying closer attention to how people behave around certain topics. You notice changes in tone when particular subjects arise. Someone might speak confidently about a situation when discussing it with others, but become noticeably cautious when addressing you directly. Another person might offer an explanation that feels incomplete, as though an important piece of the story was intentionally left out. These details do not always provoke immediate confrontation because the chosen one often carries a natural sense of patience. Rather than reacting emotionally, you observe quietly and allow the environment to reveal itself gradually. And as you continue observing, more pieces begin appearing. The chosen one may notice that certain individuals consistently redirect conversations away from topics that feel connected to their life path. When questions about past events, family dynamics, or unexplained decisions arise, the answers sometimes arrive wrapped in ambiguity. Instead of clear explanations, you receive phrases that appear designed to close the conversation rather than open it. Words like, "It's not important," "You'll understand later," or "There's nothing to worry about," become familiar responses that leave the original curiosity unresolved. These responses may be delivered kindly, but they still carry the subtle message that the full truth is not being shared. In many cases, the chosen one does not immediately assume that anyone is acting with harmful intentions. The possibility that information might be deliberately withheld can feel difficult to accept because it challenges the trust that forms the foundation of many relationships. Yet awareness does not disappear simply because it feels uncomfortable. The chosen one continues noticing patterns that others might overlook. When multiple individuals react similarly to certain questions, the pattern becomes harder to dismiss as coincidence. It begins suggesting that some form of unspoken understanding may exist within the environment, an agreement about what should or should not be discussed openly. The chosen one may also remember moments when outsiders or strangers seemed to hint at knowledge that those closer to you avoided discussing. Perhaps someone mentioned an event from the past that you had never heard about before. Perhaps a comment about your potential, your role, or your future appeared unexpectedly in a conversation. These moments often feel confusing because they reveal small glimpses of a larger story that was never fully explained. The chosen one might initially feel disoriented by these discoveries. Why would information connected to your own journey feel like a puzzle assembled from scattered fragments? Why would certain individuals appear comfortable discussing pieces of the truth while others avoid it entirely? As these questions grow stronger, the chosen one begins recognizing something important about the nature of hidden information. Silence rarely appears randomly. When people repeatedly avoid certain subjects, it usually reflects a deeper motivation. Sometimes that motivation comes from fear of consequences. Other times, it arises from a desire to protect someone from knowledge they believe might cause confusion or conflict. In still other situations, the silence may be connected to power dynamics that people are not ready to disrupt. The chosen one slowly realizes that the missing pieces of information surrounding their life may not have disappeared by accident. They may have been quietly set aside, redirected, or delayed because someone believed the chosen one was not yet ready to receive them. Yet what makes this stage of the journey so fascinating is that the chosen one's awareness continues developing even without direct explanations. Each subtle signal sharpens your ability to read the environment. You begin understanding not only what people say, but also what they choose not to say. You learn to recognize the pauses between words, the glances exchanged between individuals, and the moments when a conversation shifts direction unexpectedly. These observations gradually reveal more about the situation than any single explanation ever could. The chosen one becomes a quiet student of human behavior, recognizing that silence itself often carries meaning. The absence of information becomes its own form of communication. Over time, this awareness creates a powerful internal shift. Instead of feeling frustrated by the lack of clear answers, the chosen one begins trusting their own perception. You realize that intuition and observation can reveal truths that others may hesitate to explain openly. The environment may attempt to limit what you hear directly, but it cannot completely control what you perceive. Each small clue, each unusual reaction, and each unexplained moment becomes part of a larger picture forming within your understanding. And as this picture grows clearer, the chosen one begins preparing for the possibility that the truth once hidden will eventually come into view. The subtle signs that once felt confusing now appear like early signals of a deeper awakening. They were never meant to leave you permanently in the dark. Instead, they were the first hints that your awareness was beginning to reach beyond the limits others attempted to place around it. In this way, the journey of the chosen one transforms those early moments of uncertainty into the foundation for something far greater. What once felt like missing information becomes the starting point of a discovery that no silence can hold back forever. Why certain people agreed to keep you uninformed gradually reveals that the silence surrounding the chosen one was rarely random or accidental, but instead often formed through quiet agreements between individuals who believed they were protecting something, preserving control, or delaying a truth they were not ready to face themselves. As the chosen one's awareness deepens, it becomes clear that information does not simply disappear on its own. Knowledge moves through communities like an invisible current, passing from one conversation to another, from one perspective to the next. When a piece of truth consistently fails to reach a particular person, it usually means that someone along that path decided the message should stop there. This realization can feel unsettling at first, because it suggests that silence sometimes requires cooperation. Not always through malicious planning, but through small decisions made by multiple individuals who choose, consciously or unconsciously, to maintain the same quiet boundary. In many cases, the people involved may not even see themselves as hiding anything harmful. They may believe they are protecting stability, avoiding conflict, or shielding the chosen one from knowledge they assume could be overwhelming. Yet what begins as protection can gradually transform into concealment, especially when the silence continues longer than it should. The chosen one slowly begins understanding that people often form these unspoken agreements because truth has consequences. When certain information becomes visible, it can challenge relationships, expose past decisions, or force individuals to reconsider narratives they have relied on for years. For some people, maintaining the existing version of events feels safer than allowing a deeper reality to emerge. This is how quiet alliances around silence are born. One person avoids explaining something fully because they fear how it might be received. Another person notices the avoidance and follows the same pattern, assuming the topic must be sensitive or forbidden. Over time, the behavior becomes normalized within the environment. Conversations learn to move around the truth instead of through it. The chosen one may sense that a deeper story exists, yet the story remains fragmented because each person only reveals small pieces of it. This pattern often grows stronger in communities where reputation and hierarchy carry significant weight. When certain individuals are seen as authority figures or respected voices, others may hesitate to contradict the narrative those figures present. Silence then becomes a form of loyalty. People may choose not to reveal what they know because doing so could challenge the structure that organizes the community itself. In these environments, the chosen one's questions can unintentionally create tension. Not because the questions are unreasonable, but because they threaten to expose a truth that many people have quietly agreed not to examine too closely. Yet another reason these silent agreements form involves fear of misunderstanding. Some individuals may genuinely worry that revealing certain information will create confusion or pain for the chosen one. They may believe that waiting for the right moment will allow the truth to be understood more clearly. Unfortunately, waiting often turns into postponing indefinitely. The right moment becomes tomorrow, then next month, then some undefined future when the subject feels less complicated. Meanwhile, the chosen one continues sensing that something remains unfinished beneath the surface of conversations. What makes this stage of the journey especially significant is that the chosen one begins recognizing that silence itself reveals more about the people maintaining it than about the information being hidden. When individuals consistently avoid transparency, it often reflects their own uncertainty about how the truth might change their relationships or responsibilities. Some may fear losing influence if certain realities become widely known. Others may worry about facing questions they cannot easily answer. Still others may simply feel uncomfortable acknowledging that they once participated in decisions that now appear questionable in hindsight. The chosen one gradually realizes that the silence surrounding them was never truly about their inability to understand the truth. Instead, it often reflected the hesitation of others who were not ready to face that truth themselves. This awareness brings a subtle but powerful shift in perspective. Rather than feeling excluded or diminished, the chosen one begins recognizing the deeper dynamics that shaped the environment. The quiet agreements were not evidence of weakness in the chosen one's awareness. They were evidence of uncertainty within the community. People sometimes withhold information not because someone else cannot handle the truth, but because they themselves are still trying to decide how to handle it. As this understanding grows, the chosen one also begins noticing how fragile these agreements can be. Silence requires constant cooperation to survive. Each person involved must continue choosing not to speak. But human environments are rarely stable enough to maintain perfect secrecy forever. People change, circumstances evolve, and new perspectives enter the conversation. A person who once remained silent may later feel compelled to share what they know. Another individual may grow tired of carrying information that feels unresolved. Over time, the agreements that once seemed solid begin developing small fractures. Someone hints at a forgotten detail. Another person references an event that was never fully explained before. Gradually, the walls surrounding hidden information start weakening. What once required coordinated silence begins slipping through the cracks of ordinary conversation. The chosen one may notice these changes first as subtle shifts in tone. A topic that once produced immediate silence now generates cautious discussion. A person who previously avoided answering questions begins offering partial explanations. Even body language can change,
reflecting a growing awareness that the truth may no longer remain contained. These small shifts signal that the environment itself is evolving. The agreement to keep the chosen one uninformed is beginning to lose its power.
Yet perhaps the most important realization during this stage is that the chosen one's role in this situation has also been changing quietly in the background. As you developed patience, observation, and emotional clarity, you became someone capable of handling the truth without being destabilized by it. The silence that once surrounded you may have delayed certain understandings, but it also gave you time to strengthen the qualities needed to face those understandings wisely. The chosen one emerges from this period with a deeper appreciation for discernment. You learn that information does not always arrive directly, and that awareness sometimes grows through observation rather than explanation. More importantly, you realize that hidden truths rarely stay hidden forever. The agreements that once kept you uninformed were always temporary, even if the people involved believed they could maintain them indefinitely. Time, awareness, and shifting perspectives slowly dissolve those quiet alliances. And as they dissolve, the chosen one finds themselves standing at the edge of a new phase of understanding. The information that was once carefully withheld begins moving closer, carried by the same currents of conversation and experience that once diverted it away. The silence that surrounded you becomes less secure, less coordinated, and less convincing with each passing moment. What was once protected by hesitation now faces the quiet inevitability of truth returning to the person it was always connected to in the first place. The moment you begin connecting the dots unfolds quietly at first, almost like a shift in the atmosphere rather than a dramatic revelation. For a long time, the chosen one may have carried scattered pieces of memory that never seemed to fit together clearly. Certain comments, unexplained reactions, and unusual silences remained floating in the background of your mind without forming a complete picture. But there comes a point in every awakening when the mind begins reorganizing those fragments. It does not happen through force or anxiety. Instead, it happens through calm reflection, the way sunlight slowly reveals details in a landscape that once appeared hidden by shadow. As the chosen one continues observing the world with growing awareness, you start realizing that many of the moments that once seemed random were actually connected to one another. A conversation from years ago suddenly makes more sense when remembered alongside a recent discovery. A vague warning someone once gave you now appears less mysterious when placed next to a pattern of behavior you have recently noticed. The chosen one begins seeing that these pieces were never truly isolated events. They were signals, pointing toward a larger narrative that had simply been difficult to see all at once. This stage can feel both surprising and empowering, because it reveals the remarkable ability of the human mind to detect patterns once enough information becomes available. What once appeared confusing now begins forming a structure that feels logical and even inevitable. The chosen one starts remembering the exact moments when certain people hesitated before answering your questions, or when individuals exchanged glances as though silently acknowledging something they preferred not to discuss openly. At the time, those gestures may have passed quickly without leaving a clear impression, but now, viewed from a wider perspective, they appear like pieces of a puzzle quietly waiting for the moment when they could be understood. The process of connecting these dots does not usually involve anger or resentment. Instead, it brings a sense of clarity that slowly replaces confusion. The chosen one realizes that many of the hidden dynamics surrounding your life were never entirely invisible. They were simply too subtle to interpret correctly when viewed individually. Now, however, The pieces align in ways that make the larger pattern unmistakable. The mind begins tracing connections between events separated by years or even decades. Decisions that once seemed unrelated suddenly appear part of the same unfolding story. Moments when people acted unusually cautious around certain topics now reveal themselves as attempts to avoid opening discussions that could expose deeper truths. The chosen one may also begin noticing how your own intuition had been quietly active throughout these experiences. Long before the facts became visible, there may have been subtle feelings suggesting that something in the environment was not entirely transparent. Perhaps you felt a quiet sense of curiosity that never fully disappeared. Perhaps you noticed emotional reactions from others that seemed disproportionate to the situation being discussed. These intuitive signals often arrive before logical explanations, and at the time, they can be difficult to interpret. Yet once the chosen one begins connecting the dots, those early feelings suddenly appear remarkably accurate. What once seemed like vague uncertainty now looks more like an early awareness, waiting patiently for confirmation. This realization often strengthens the chosen one's trust in their own perception. You begin recognizing that your awareness was never truly absent. It was simply gathering information slowly, waiting until enough pieces existed to reveal the full pattern. Another fascinating aspect of this stage is the way memory begins reorganizing itself around new understanding. Events that once felt confusing may now appear as obvious turning points. The chosen one might recall moments when someone attempted to redirect a conversation away from a certain subject, or when an explanation ended abruptly before reaching a clear conclusion. These memories suddenly take on new meaning, because they now fit into a broader narrative. The environment that once felt fragmented begins appearing structured in ways that reveal how information moved and how it was sometimes redirected before reaching you. As this clarity grows, the chosen one also develops a deeper understanding of the people involved in maintaining those silences. Instead of viewing them simply as individuals who hid information, you begin recognizing the complexity of their motivations. Some may have acted out of fear, worried that revealing certain truths would disrupt relationships or create conflict. Others may have believed they were protecting you from knowledge they assumed would cause distress. And in some cases, individuals may have simply followed the example of others, continuing a pattern of silence without ever questioning why it existed in the first place. Recognizing these possibilities does not excuse the lack of transparency, but it does reveal the human complexity behind it. The chosen one sees that people are often navigating their own uncertainties when deciding what to reveal and what to withhold. This understanding adds depth to the awakening process. Rather than reducing the situation to simple betrayal, the chosen one begins seeing it as a complicated web of choices made under pressure, fear, or misunderstanding. Yet the most powerful transformation during this stage is the shift from confusion to empowerment. Once the chosen one begins connecting the dots, the environment no longer feels unpredictable or mysterious in the same way. You start recognizing patterns more quickly and interpreting behaviors with greater clarity. Conversations that once felt vague now reveal hidden implications. Situations that once created doubt now appear easier to understand because you have developed the ability to read between the lines. This does not mean the chosen one becomes cynical or distrustful. Instead, you become more discerning, capable of noticing both honesty and hesitation within the same interaction. The world becomes richer in meaning because you are no longer limited to the surface layer of communication. You can observe the deeper currents shaping how people interact and why certain truths emerge slowly rather than immediately. As this stage unfolds, The chosen one also begins realizing that connecting the dots is not merely about understanding the past. It also prepares you for future clarity. The same awareness that allowed you to recognize hidden patterns will continue guiding you as new information appears. You become someone capable of integrating knowledge gradually without being overwhelmed by it. Instead of demanding instant answers, you allow truth to reveal itself through observation, patience, and reflection. This approach transforms the awakening into a process of growth rather than confrontation. The chosen one does not need to force the truth into the open, because the connections themselves create understanding. And as more pieces fall into place, the larger story surrounding your life begins emerging with remarkable coherence. The scattered fragments that once caused uncertainty now appear like stepping stones, leading toward a deeper realization. What once felt like missing information begins transforming into insight. The chosen one understands that awareness itself is a powerful force, capable of illuminating truths that others believed could remain hidden indefinitely. In this way, the moment you begin connecting the dots becomes a turning point in the journey. It marks the transition from passive observation to active understanding. The chosen one no longer stands outside the story wondering what is missing. Instead, you stand within it, recognizing how each piece fits together and why the truth that once seemed distant is now moving steadily into view. Why the truth could not stay hidden forever gradually reveals one of the most important laws governing human experience. Information that is tied to purpose eventually finds its way to the person it belongs to. For a long time, the chosen one may have wondered why certain truths seemed delayed, redirected, or partially concealed. It might have felt as though there were invisible barriers preventing clarity from arriving at the right moment. Yet, as awareness deepens, something remarkable begins to unfold. The chosen one realizes that truth behaves very differently from ordinary information. While rumors can disappear and assumptions can fade away, truth possesses a quiet persistence. It moves through time, through conversations, through changing circumstances, until eventually it reaches the person who needs to see it. This stage of the journey is often where the chosen one begins understanding that the delay of truth does not mean its disappearance. In fact, many truths grow stronger during periods of concealment because time allows more evidence, more perspective, and more voices to emerge. What once existed only as scattered fragments gradually transforms into a complete picture that becomes impossible to ignore. The chosen one may notice that individuals who once remained silent begin showing subtle signs of discomfort. Conversations that previously felt controlled now carry hints of uncertainty. People who once confidently maintained certain narratives may start speaking more cautiously, as though sensing that the environment itself is shifting. This is because truth rarely arrives through a single dramatic event. Instead, it accumulates gradually, like light slowly filling a room that was once dim. Each new piece of understanding adds brightness to the overall picture. A comment that once seemed insignificant now reveals a hidden implication. An unexplained decision from the past suddenly appears logical when viewed alongside newly discovered information. The chosen one begins realizing that the environment around you has been quietly collecting clues all along. The truth was never entirely absent. It was simply waiting for the moment when enough pieces existed to reveal its full shape. One of the reasons truth cannot remain hidden forever is that human behavior inevitably leaves traces. Every decision, every conversation, and every attempt to control information creates small signals that others can observe. Even the most carefully maintained silence eventually produces contradictions. Someone remembers a detail differently. Another person notices an inconsistency between words and actions. Over time, these small contradictions accumulate until the original narrative begins losing its stability. The chosen one often witnesses this process unfolding slowly within the community. At first, the changes may be subtle. Someone asks a question that was previously avoided. Another person references an event that had never been fully explained before. These moments create small openings through which truth begins entering the conversation. The chosen one may notice that people who once appeared confident now seem uncertain about how much to say. The silence that once felt coordinated begins weakening as individuals reconsider their role in maintaining it. Some may feel relieved that the subject is finally being discussed openly. Others may appear hesitant, aware that the truth now emerging could change how past events are understood. Yet regardless of these reactions, the process continues moving forward. Once the environment begins shifting toward transparency, it becomes increasingly difficult to restore the old pattern of silence. The chosen one also discovers something profound about personal awareness during this stage. The same patience and observation that helped you recognize subtle signs earlier now become powerful tools for understanding the unfolding truth. Instead of reacting impulsively, you watch carefully as events reveal themselves. This calm approach often creates a powerful contrast with those who attempted to control the narrative. While others may appear defensive or uncertain, the chosen one remains composed, allowing the truth to emerge without forcing it prematurely. This composure becomes an unexpected source of strength. It demonstrates that the chosen one is not seeking revenge or validation through conflict. Instead, you are simply allowing reality to reveal itself naturally. Another reason the truth could not stay hidden forever lies in the nature of human conscience. Even when people agree to keep information quiet, that agreement rarely eliminates the internal awareness that something important remains unspoken. Over time, this awareness can create emotional tension. Individuals may begin questioning whether maintaining silence truly serves the situation. Some may feel that continuing to hide the truth prevents growth or healing within the community. Eventually, someone may decide that honesty is the only path forward. When that moment arrives, it often triggers a chain reaction. Once one person speaks openly, others realize they are no longer alone in their awareness. What once required coordinated silence now encounters multiple voices willing to share what they know. The chosen one may witness this shift with a mixture of surprise and clarity. The environment that once felt restrictive begins transforming into a space where truth can finally move freely. Yet perhaps the most remarkable realization during this stage is that the chosen one was never meant to remain disconnected from the truth surrounding their own life. The delays, the silences, and the hidden dynamics were temporary obstacles, not permanent barriers. Your journey was always moving toward understanding, even when that understanding seemed distant. Each moment of confusion, each unanswered question, and each subtle signal played a role in preparing you for the clarity that is now arriving. The chosen one begins seeing that the process itself carried meaning. If the truth had appeared all at once, without context, it might have been overwhelming or difficult to interpret. But by arriving gradually, it allowed your awareness to grow alongside it. You developed patience, discernment, and emotional strength during the period when information seemed incomplete. Now those qualities help you receive the truth with wisdom rather than reaction. As the environment continues evolving, the chosen one also notices how perspectives within the community begin changing. People who once accepted certain narratives without question may now reconsider them.
Others may express curiosity about how events actually unfolded. The conversation shifts from maintaining silence to seeking understanding. This transformation can feel almost surreal because the same topics that were once avoided now become subjects of open discussion. The Chosen One stands within this new atmosphere with a calm sense of recognition. The truth that once seemed distant is no longer struggling to find its way forward. It is moving naturally through the environment, carried by the same human curiosity and honesty that eventually emerge in every community.
And as this movement continues, the Chosen One understands that the silence that once surrounded you was never capable of lasting forever. Truth possesses a quiet determination that cannot be permanently contained. It travels patiently through time until the moment arrives when awareness is ready to receive it fully. In that moment, the Chosen One recognizes that what once felt hidden was never truly lost. It was simply waiting for the right conditions to reveal itself, and those conditions have now begun to appear. How awareness changes the power dynamic begins with a quiet but profound realization that the moment the Chosen One becomes aware of what was hidden, the balance of power within the environment shifts in ways many people never expected. For a long time, the dynamic may have appeared stable from the outside. Information moved in certain directions. Conversations followed familiar patterns. And those who controlled what was shared believed they understood how the situation would continue unfolding. The Chosen One may have seemed like the only person missing certain pieces of the puzzle. And that absence of information created the illusion that control rested entirely in the hands of those managing the narrative. But awareness has a unique quality that changes everything the moment it appears. Once the Chosen One begins seeing the pattern clearly, the environment itself starts reorganizing around that new understanding. What once felt like an imbalance slowly transforms into a different kind of equilibrium, one where perception replaces ignorance and clarity replaces uncertainty. The Chosen One does not necessarily need to confront anyone directly to trigger this shift. Simply recognizing the truth already changes how you carry yourself in conversations, how you interpret behavior, and how you respond to situations that once created confusion. People often underestimate how visible awareness can become. Even when the Chosen One remains calm and composed, the subtle change in your presence communicates that something within you has awakened. Individuals who were comfortable when they believed you lacked information may suddenly sense that their position is no longer secure. They begin noticing that their explanations no longer produce the same reactions they once did. The Chosen One listens differently now, hearing not only the words spoken, but also the meanings hidden between them. This deeper perception quietly alters the dynamic of every interaction. Conversations that once felt one-sided now become balanced, because the Chosen One understands the context behind what is being said. Questions that once seemed impossible to answer now appear easier to navigate, because the larger pattern has become visible. In many cases, the people who once benefited from controlling information begin feeling a subtle unease they cannot easily explain. It is not necessarily fear of confrontation, but rather the realization that the narrative they carefully maintained no longer functions the way it once did. The Chosen One's awareness acts like a mirror, reflecting reality more clearly than before. When someone attempts to redirect a conversation or avoid a topic, the Chosen One recognizes the behavior immediately. When explanations appear incomplete, the gaps become visible rather than confusing. This shift does not require aggression or accusation. In fact, the Chosen One's calm response often makes the change even more noticeable. Instead of reacting emotionally,
You simply acknowledge what is happening with quiet clarity.
That composure sends a powerful message to the environment. It demonstrates that the chosen one is no longer dependent on others to define the story surrounding their life. Awareness has returned that authority to the person it always belonged to. Another important aspect of this transformation is how it affects the internal world of the chosen one. For a long time, uncertainty may have created self-doubt. When information is withheld, it can lead someone to question their own perception. The chosen one may have wondered whether certain feelings or observations were accurate. But once awareness arrives, that doubt begins dissolving rapidly. You start recognizing that your intuition had been guiding you toward the truth long before the evidence became visible. This realization strengthens confidence in your ability to understand complex situations without relying entirely on external explanations. The chosen one begins trusting the quiet intelligence that has been developing within you throughout the journey. That confidence naturally changes the power dynamic as well. People often attempt to control situations by influencing how others interpret events. When the chosen one lacked certain information, those interpretations may have shaped how you understood the environment. But now the chosen one interprets events independently, using a broader awareness that no longer depends on the narrative offered by others. This independence can feel unsettling for individuals who once believed they could shape the story completely. They may attempt to maintain the old dynamic by continuing to offer partial explanations or redirect conversations, but those efforts rarely work as effectively as before. The chosen one recognizes the pattern immediately, and that recognition quietly dismantles the illusion of control. Another fascinating development during this stage involves the reactions of people who were not directly responsible for maintaining silence, but who unknowingly participated in the environment shaped by it. Some of these individuals may begin noticing the shift in energy surrounding the chosen one. They may sense that something significant has changed, even if they cannot identify the exact reason. The chosen one's presence becomes more grounded, more confident, and more observant. This change can inspire curiosity within the community. People who once accepted certain narratives without question may begin reconsidering them. The chosen one does not need to persuade anyone actively, because awareness itself influences the atmosphere. When someone stands firmly in clarity, it encourages others to examine their own assumptions more carefully. This is one of the most powerful aspects of the transformation taking place. Awareness does not only empower the chosen one, it also invites the surrounding environment to evolve. As more individuals notice the inconsistencies that once remained hidden, the old narrative loses its stability. Conversations become more open, questions become more thoughtful, and the truth that once struggled to move through the environment begins finding new paths forward. The chosen one witnesses this shift with a sense of calm understanding. You realize that the balance of power was never truly about controlling information. It was always about awareness. Those who attempted to manage the narrative believed that keeping certain truths hidden would preserve their influence. But influence built on silence is fragile, because it depends entirely on maintaining that silence indefinitely. The moment awareness enters the equation, the entire structure begins changing. The chosen one stands within this transformation, not as someone seeking dominance, but as someone reclaiming clarity. You no longer need to chase the truth or demand explanations. Instead, you observe how reality gradually reorganizes itself around what has been revealed. The power dynamic shifts naturally because awareness restores balance to situations that once relied on confusion. In this way, the chosen one learns one of the most important lessons of the journey. True strength does not come from controlling information or manipulating perception. It comes from the ability to see clearly, remain calm, and allow truth to reshape the environment in its own time. As awareness continues expanding, the Chosen One recognizes that the role you play within the story has changed permanently. You are no longer the person standing outside the conversation, wondering what is missing. You are now someone who understands the deeper currents moving beneath the surface. And once that understanding takes root, the environment around you begins adapting to a new reality, where clarity holds far more power than silence ever did. What happens when the hidden truth reaches you? Fully unfolds as the moment when everything that once existed as scattered hints, quiet suspicions, and subtle observations finally converges into clear understanding. And the Chosen One realizes that the truth they sensed for so long has now arrived in full view. This stage does not usually appear as a single dramatic announcement or confession. Instead, it often arrives through a sequence of confirmations that quietly reinforce one another until the picture becomes undeniable. A comment from someone who was once silent suddenly aligns with something you noticed years ago. A piece of information that once felt vague now connects perfectly with another detail that recently surfaced. The Chosen One begins recognizing that the fragments you have been gathering across time were never random. They were part of a larger narrative that is finally revealing itself. What makes this moment powerful is not simply the information itself, but the clarity that accompanies it. When the truth finally reaches the Chosen One, it often brings a calm sense of recognition rather than shock. Deep inside, you already sensed that something beneath the surface was waiting to be understood. Now that the full context becomes visible, the confusion that once surrounded the situation begins dissolving rapidly. Events that once seemed unrelated now appear interconnected, and behaviors that once felt mysterious now reveal clear motivations behind them. The Chosen One stands within this moment, not as someone overwhelmed by discovery, but as someone who has quietly been preparing for it through patience and observation. One of the first things the Chosen One notices during this stage is how perception begins sharpening even further. The mind that once worked hard to interpret incomplete signals now operates with a new level of precision. Conversations that previously felt confusing suddenly appear transparent. When someone speaks about past events, the Chosen One can easily identify where their words align with reality and where they reflect attempts to reshape the narrative. This ability does not come from suspicion, but from the clarity that truth naturally brings. Once the hidden information reaches you, the entire environment becomes easier to read, because you now understand the context surrounding it. The Chosen One also experiences a significant internal shift during this moment. For a long time, the absence of certain information may have created emotional tension. Questions without answers can produce frustration or self-doubt, especially when others seem unwilling to discuss the subject openly. But when the truth finally arrives, that tension often dissolves in unexpected ways. Instead of feeling anger toward those who maintained silence, the Chosen One may feel a surprising sense of relief. The unknown has been replaced with understanding, and understanding brings a stability that uncertainty could never provide. The mind no longer needs to guess or speculate, because the reality of the situation has become visible. This emotional clarity strengthens the Chosen One's ability to move forward without becoming trapped in resentment. The truth becomes a foundation for growth rather than a source of conflict. Another fascinating development during this stage involves how the environment itself begins reacting to the Chosen One's new awareness. People who once felt comfortable maintaining silence may suddenly sense that the dynamic has changed. The Chosen One no longer approaches conversations from a place of curiosity alone. You now carry the quiet certainty of someone who understands the full context of what has been happening. This certainty does not require confrontation to become visible. It appears in the calmness of your responses, the clarity of your questions, and the way you navigate situations that once seemed confusing. Individuals who previously relied on controlling information may find themselves unsure how to interact within this new dynamic. Some may attempt to explain their past actions, hoping to clarify why certain truths were delayed or concealed. Others may remain quiet, recognizing that the Chosen One's awareness has already answered the questions that once seemed impossible to resolve. The Chosen One observes these reactions without rushing to judge them. Awareness creates space for understanding, and understanding often reveals that human behavior is shaped by complex motivations rather than simple intentions. As this stage continues unfolding, the Chosen One begins recognizing how the arrival of truth changes your relationship with the past. Events that once felt unresolved now appear complete because their underlying causes have become visible. Memories that once carried confusion now carry meaning. Even moments of silence that once felt frustrating begin making sense when viewed through the lens of the full story. The Chosen One realizes that the journey toward understanding was never about exposing others or proving anyone wrong. It was about reclaiming clarity within your own life. The truth that finally reached you was always connected to your path, and now that it has arrived, it becomes part of the wisdom guiding your next steps. This awareness also transforms how the Chosen One interacts with the future. When someone has experienced the process of discovering hidden truths, they develop a heightened sensitivity to patterns of transparency and concealment in their environment. The Chosen One becomes someone who naturally values openness and honesty, because you understand the consequences of prolonged silence. You begin creating relationships and conversations that encourage clarity rather than avoidance. This shift influences the community around you as well. People who interact with the Chosen One often sense that you carry a deeper awareness of how information shapes human connections. They may feel encouraged to speak more honestly because they recognize that the Chosen One does not respond to truth with judgment, but with understanding. In this way, the arrival of hidden truth becomes more than a personal realization. It becomes a catalyst for healthier communication within the environment. Perhaps the most important realization during this stage is that the truth reaching you does not represent the end of the journey, but the beginning of a new level of awareness. The Chosen One now understands how easily information can be redirected or delayed within human systems, and this understanding encourages a deeper commitment to discernment. You become someone who listens carefully, observes patiently, and trusts the process through which clarity emerges over time. Instead of rushing to conclusions, the Chosen One allows truth to reveal itself naturally, knowing that genuine understanding cannot be forced. This patience becomes one of your greatest strengths. It demonstrates that the Chosen One has learned from the experience rather than becoming hardened by it. As the hidden truth settles into your awareness, the Chosen One recognizes that the journey has transformed you in ways that extend far beyond the original situation. You have developed perception, resilience, and emotional balance through the process of uncovering what was once concealed. These qualities will continue guiding you as new experiences arise. The environment may still present complex situations, but the Chosen One now carries the knowledge that truth always finds its way forward eventually. Even when information seems delayed or incomplete, awareness and patience will bring clarity in time. Standing within this realization, the Chosen One understands that the moment the hidden truth reached you was not simply a revelation about the past. It was a turning point that reshaped how you perceive reality itself. And from this point forward, the clarity you have gained will continue illuminating your path with a quiet but undeniable strength. Why the information was always meant for you gradually reveals one of the most profound realizations in the entire journey of the Chosen One. The truth that was delayed, redirected, or temporarily hidden was never truly meant to remain outside your awareness forever. From the beginning, the information circulating around your life carried a natural gravity that would eventually draw it back to the person it belonged to. For a long time, it may have seemed as though others controlled the flow of knowledge, deciding what you should hear, when you should hear it, and how much of the story would reach you. Yet, as the Chosen One stands at this stage of awakening, something deeper becomes clear. Information tied to purpose behaves differently from ordinary facts. It has a way of returning to its rightful place, even after long periods of silence or confusion. This realization changes how the Chosen One understands everything that happened along the way. What once felt like exclusion now appears more like delay. What once seemed like control now looks more like temporary diversion. The truth itself was never destroyed or erased. It simply moved through time, waiting for the moment when your awareness had grown strong enough to receive it fully and interpret it correctly. When the Chosen One reflects on the earlier stages of the journey, the pattern becomes even clearer. There were moments when fragments of information almost reached you, but then slipped away again. There were hints in conversations, unusual reactions from certain individuals, and brief glimpses of deeper context that appeared only to disappear again. At the time, these experiences may have felt frustrating or confusing, but now they reveal something remarkable. The information surrounding your life was always circulating within the environment. It never truly vanished. It was simply moving through different paths, waiting for the conditions that would allow it to reach you without distortion. This understanding transforms the entire narrative. Instead of seeing the silence as permanent separation, the Chosen One begins recognizing it as part of a larger process through which truth gradually returns to its rightful destination. One of the reasons this information was always meant for you lies in the simple reality that it directly affects your path. When knowledge connects to your experiences, your relationships, or your purpose, it cannot remain external indefinitely. The Chosen One eventually becomes the natural center toward which that information moves. Even if others attempt to redirect the conversation or postpone the explanation, the deeper currents of truth continue guiding it closer to you. This movement may happen slowly, sometimes unfolding over years, but it never completely stops. The Chosen One begins noticing that many of the revelations appearing now are connected to decisions or events that shaped your life long ago. People who once remained silent may suddenly feel compelled to speak. Documents or memories that once seemed inaccessible may surface unexpectedly. Conversations that once avoided certain topics now explore them openly. These developments are not random coincidences. They are signs that the information tied to your journey has reached the point where it can no longer remain outside your awareness. Another powerful aspect of this stage is the realization that your own growth played a significant role in making the truth visible. The Chosen One you are today is not the same person you were when the silence first began. Over time, you developed patience, emotional strength, and the ability to observe situations without reacting impulsively. These qualities created the conditions necessary for understanding the truth clearly, rather than being overwhelmed by it. If the information had reached you earlier, before this growth occurred, it might have produced confusion rather than clarity. But now the Chosen One possesses the discernment needed to interpret the story with wisdom. This perspective transforms the way you view the delay itself. Instead of seeing it only as something imposed by others, you begin recognizing that the journey required time for both awareness and maturity to develop. The information that finally arrived did not come to destroy your peace or create unnecessary conflict. It came to restore clarity and complete the understanding of your own narrative. As the Chosen One reflects on this realization, another truth emerges. The information was never meant to empower anyone else more than it empowered you. Those who attempted to control it may have believed that keeping it away from you preserved their influence. Yet influence built on withheld truth cannot last indefinitely, because it depends entirely on maintaining the illusion that someone else lacks awareness. The moment the Chosen One receives the truth, that illusion dissolves instantly. The balance of understanding returns to its natural position, where the person whose life is connected to the information becomes the one best equipped to interpret it. This shift does not require confrontation or retaliation. The Chosen One does not need to prove anything to anyone. Simply possessing the full context changes the dynamic completely. You now see the environment with a level of clarity that cannot be taken away. People who once believed they controlled the narrative may recognize that the story has reached the person it was always connected to. In many cases, this realization encourages others to step back and allow the Chosen One to interpret events independently. The silence that once surrounded you no longer serves a purpose because the truth has already arrived. Another remarkable effect of this stage is how it strengthens the Chosen One's sense of identity. When important information about your life remains hidden, it can create subtle gaps in self-understanding. You may sense that parts of your story remain incomplete, even if you cannot explain exactly why. But once the truth reaches you, those gaps begin closing. The Chosen One gains a more complete view of the forces that shaped your experiences. Relationships, decisions, and turning points that once seemed mysterious now appear connected within a larger pattern. This deeper understanding allows you to move forward with greater confidence because your story now belongs fully to you. The Chosen One is no longer navigating the world with missing pieces of context. You carry the complete narrative, and that narrative becomes a source of wisdom guiding your next chapter. The environment around you also begins adapting to this new reality. People who once hesitated to share certain information may now speak more openly because the need for secrecy has disappeared. Conversations become more transparent, and the atmosphere surrounding the Chosen One feels noticeably lighter. What once required careful avoidance can now be discussed with honesty and reflection. This transformation does not erase the past, but it does allow the community to move forward with greater authenticity. The Chosen One stands within this moment not as someone seeking validation, but as someone who understands that truth has finally reached the place it was always meant to arrive. And as this realization settles fully into your awareness, the Chosen One recognizes something deeply empowering. The information that once seemed hidden was never truly beyond your reach. It was simply moving through time, through circumstances, and through human decisions, until the moment arrived when your awareness and the truth itself could meet without distortion. Now that meeting has occurred, and the Chosen One carries forward not only the knowledge that was once withheld, but also the wisdom gained through the journey of discovering it. When hidden truth becomes clear, direction gradually brings the entire journey into focus by reminding the Chosen One that the discovery of hidden information was never the end of the story, but the beginning of a deeper understanding of your own path. For a long time, the environment surrounding you may have felt complicated, filled with silences, partial explanations, and subtle dynamics that were difficult to interpret clearly. At times, it may have seemed as though others controlled the narrative, while you were left piecing together fragments of meaning on your own. Yet as the Chosen One now stands, with full awareness of what was once hidden, something remarkable becomes visible. The truth that finally reached you did more than reveal what had been concealed. It clarified the direction of your journey and strengthened the foundation of your self-understanding. What once appeared confusing now forms a coherent story that explains not only the past, but also the growth that occurred along the way. The Chosen One realizes that every stage of the experience contributed to the clarity you now carry. The early signs that something was missing sharpened your observation. The periods of silence strengthened your patience. The gradual process of connecting the dots developed your discernment and intuition. And when the truth finally arrived, it met a version of you that had already grown strong enough to receive it without losing balance. This realization transforms the way the Chosen One interprets the entire journey. Instead of viewing the silence only as an obstacle, you begin recognizing it as a period that refined your awareness and prepared you for deeper understanding. The knowledge that once seemed distant now sits firmly within your perspective, guiding how you interpret relationships, decisions, and opportunities moving forward. Perhaps the most powerful lesson within this conclusion is the reminder that truth always carries direction within it. When hidden information finally becomes visible, it does not simply explain the past, it illuminates the path ahead. The Chosen One begins seeing more clearly which connections in life were genuine and which were shaped by incomplete understanding. You recognize patterns that once seemed confusing and learn how to navigate future situations with greater confidence. The clarity you now possess becomes a compass, helping you choose environments and relationships that value honesty, transparency, and mutual respect. In this way, the truth that finally surfaced becomes a source of empowerment rather than bitterness. The Chosen One no longer needs to search for missing pieces because the story has revealed itself in full. And from that completeness comes a quiet sense of stability. You understand where you have been, why certain events unfolded the way they did, and how those experiences shaped the person you have become. Standing within that awareness, the Chosen One recognizes that the journey of uncovering hidden truth has given you something far greater than information. It has given you wisdom. And that wisdom ensures that the next chapters of your life will no longer be shaped by silence or confusion, but by clarity, purpose, and the strength that comes from finally seeing the full picture.